Welcome, Samantha. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to talk about Blind Pony, as true a story as I can tell.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Congratulations on your book. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
You have lived quite an inspirational life. You've had so much to deal with, to write about these experiences all over the world. It's amazing the way you've distilled it down into this book and the way you've sort of parlayed everything into your career today and all the rest. It's anyway, it's just really impressive and amazing. So anyway, just had to say that.
Well, I think I started the book out like writing the book. Uh, I would be at cocktail parties and people would say, "Oh, you have so many stories and you should write a book." But they were just anecdotal funny things. They had no real depth or meaning. And so I thought one day, maybe I should write a book. And I started writing and it just became a catharsis. And what came out actually surprised me because what I had to write about was so deep and so much a part of who I became. The pain that I sort of built on in layers became the person that I evolved to. And I never really made that connection before writing the book. And I think that's kind of complicated to understand. But I think that some people use, their pain or whatever to hide or to retreat. I used my pain to sort of push me forward. And I think part of it was becoming a single mom and um really having that feeling of, well, I've got to get busy because I've got to take care of her. And that became my, life's mission, and everything else got put on the back burner. But now that I've had a time in my opportunity in my life to kind of reflect, I I can't, I even read the book and I can't believe I went through some of the things I went through, Zibby. Sometimes I go, gosh, golly, how did I get through that?
Yeah. I'm
Um,
like, "Is this really true? All of this?"
yeah, it's true. I mean, unfortunately, I left out a lot of bits uh, because I didn't want to write like a tell-all.
Okay.
It wasn't about that. It was about me and my personal trauma and my personal experiences. And part of me was like constantly going like, I don't want to tell people this. I still have clients out there. Like, what are people going to think of me, revealing all this stuff? And as terrified as I was to do it because of those reasons, is as joyful now that I did it, because I realized that it actually is helping people. There are a lot of blind ponies out there, I like to say. It's like when you pull on a thread and you've pulled on it, it's actually a good feeling, even though it does start as sort of unraveling, you know. Like your book, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I mean, what mom can't relate to that? It's something that, do you know what I'm saying? And so, you pulled on a thread and it's infectious. I mean, I read the book right away, so it's
Thank
that
you.
type of thing. And I think Blind Pony's a little trickier, but I have noticed like lately, mental health has become a really big deal in the conversation, in society's conversation. And I wrote the book not really expecting to, ignite that conversation. I really just wrote the book. Like I said, at first it was just a catharsis. And my husband kept saying, "You've got to do this. You've got to he kept encouraging me to finish the book. And so when the pandemic hit and I finally had the time to really stop down and really reflect and think about it, that's when I really was able to finish it.
And maybe you could just tell I didn't do a I it- maybe you could tell people who don't understand what a blind pony is, or your the bigger sort of beats of your life story, if you could share them.
Well, the title really came from a I was literally given a blind pony. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, and my grandfather began abusing me shortly after we moved to the farm with my four sisters and I. My mother got divorced, and she took us back to her family farm. And so I think I was at the age where I could be manipulated. I was 5 years old. And so I grew up with this, you know, not really understanding what love was, not really understanding that I was being so manipulated. And I can't, that's all I'm going to say about it. Girl, I'll start, I'll get emotional. But I think it's also a form of control over me. He gave me this blind pony. She was only blind in one eye, but it was, it was just you know, she was kicked out by, it was her eye was kicked out. So it was really gruesome to look at. And, and she became a metaphor for how I felt damaged. And I think that, when you have four sisters, there's always competition, right? And so they'd all be galloping up over Gobbler's Knob, and I'd be kind of trotting along with the blind pony because I'd have to be her eyes and sort of guide her because she'd spook at almost anything. And so it really stuck with me, that experience of having this blind pony. And her name was Princess. And it's sort of the cost of being a princess is being damaged in some way, and so all these sort of little pieces kind of fit together for me. And that's why I named the book Blind Pony, and it became, like I said, a metaphor for not being seen and heard. And so I kind of built the book around that. And I think because the trauma I experienced as a child before I ran away at age 14 was so significant that it stayed with me really for the rest of my life. I mean, now I think I'm finally kind of in a really healthy place where I don't have these repetitive nightmares, or I don't hear a screen door snap shut and it triggers an emotion I felt as a little girl when the babysitter ran off with our household money. I mean, these things that happen, as small as they seem, when you're little, they live on in the recesses of your mind, I guess. And so throughout the book, there are mentions of my pony or these experiences. It's sort of flashbacks that occur at different points. But after I ran away from the farm is really where the action starts. I mean, it's like I went looking for my dad. He was a character I only knew as Wild Bill, and he really lived up to his name. And I didn't really get the opportunity to really get to know him, but I did get to know him well enough to sort of debunk the way I idolized him, but still I used him as kind of a metaphor of someone who was like my guardian angel in a way. It's kind of complicated there too. But I find my way to Los Angeles, and then I a lot of crazy things happened, and by the grace and grit, I don't know how else to explain it, I ended up with quite a successful career here. But I mean, when you hear, I mean, I couldn't have written this book, for example, if the Me Too movement hadn't happened, because people have become a little desensitized to talking about some of these themes. It's not as shocking. When I started thinking about talking about the book, I was so embarrassed to say that I'd been abused as a child. I mean, there was so much stigma attached to it that it was like, I can't possibly say that. Um, but I think that because of all these brave people who came before, it sort of paved the way for me to be able to, kind of speak some of my truth. And my situation wasn't really Me Too. I mean, plenty of Me Too things happened in my, years growing up in the business, too many to count, but they weren't like so terrible that they're even worth repeating. I mean, it was just the way it was. It was a different time period. And, getting slapped on the butt was just you did a good job, kid, boom, on your butt. It was not, it was a different thing. Now, if someone did that, it would be like, what have you just done to me? It's like, I'm going to sue you for everything you have. It was different, but I'm not saying it was okay. I much prefer the workplace as it's evolved now for women. Um, but my journey was definitely, it was definitely unique. It was at a great price, I think, to me emotionally, but it all really began with being abused as a child. I don't think that if I had been protected and not abused as a child, that any of this would have happened. Who knows what my career could have been or should have been, had I had the education I deserved or the opportunities. I mean, I had plenty of opportunities from mentors, but that was just by my own chutzpah, right? That I was able to get through doors or finagle my way. But I think that some things, should have been given to me that weren't, like, an education or those kinds of things. So I think that when I had my daughter, I really committed to breaking that cycle. And, sent her to the poshest boarding school. She, graduated from college in Boston and Emerson. She never wanted for anything. I mean, it was just the most paramount thing to me. Um, and and my sons, the same thing. I mean, I've raised three great children, and I can't imagine, and I've spoken about this before, and you really understand this. When you look at your children, you love them so much. You can't even believe that they're your children, that they came out of you. It's like, and it never happened to anybody else, did it? It's only unique to you when they're yours. And it's hard for me to reconcile, as much as I love my children, that I wasn't loved in that way. Like, I don't understand it. And so, I want to do something with all these feelings beyond writing the book. I want to be able to um, help in some way, uh, to communicate that, that sort of, you know, protecting people from these kinds of things. I think it's become sort of something that I'm thinking about more and more.
Well, at least like raising awareness and getting other people to join in the conversation is a powerful step. I
Thank
mean,
you.
you're
Thank
being
you.
willing to admit it just sets an example for other people, right?
Well,
Even what you
that's what
just
I
said, like the parts of us that we're afraid to share are often the most valuable, right? Because those are the parts other people don't want to admit to, and whether it's experiences or feelings or the regrets we have or things we think are crazy about ourselves or whatever. I don't know. I think that's the greatest stuff to share if you can. Um,
it's hard.
yeah,
It's hard.
within
And
reason, I mean,
yes, and that's why I appreciate so much your having me on, because I know it's a difficult topic to kind of tackle, for a lot of people to really get their mind wrapped around some of these crazy scenarios that happen in the book.
but I also think it's so empowering the way you've created this like amazing career for yourself,
Thank
and
you.
like now you're running this business, right? Like tell me more about that. I mean, all this art direction you did and doing the posters for, Dazed and Confused and all these like iconic things that you did over time and how now you're still running a creative business. I mean, it's great.
Well, I think I sort of fell into I was looking for I think all of us have a unique talent. And the trick is finding it. Even kids who've gone to college grapple with, what's my, reason for living. And I know to some degree, my daughter went through that, and she's an amazing singer, and she didn't really want to become a performer on Broadway, though she could have. But she has her own little theater arts group, it's actually growing, and it's an amazing thing that she does, gifts these children with her the magic of her voice and her imagination. So we all have these talents, and I think that like when I was little, lived in my imagination, and it was a way of coping, but it was also just who I am, right? I mean, I was a creative person. I was always going in the farm, the old farmhouse. I was always trying to redecorate it with all these old antiques that nobody else cared about, and I was just obsessed with how beautiful they were, and I would polish them up, and just was so almost obsessive compulsive about trying to create beauty around me. And I think that like, and you know, my aunt had foster kids, and so she had all these Salvation Army clothes, and she brought them over for the 5 girls, you know, to help clothe us. And I would pin them on in different ways and try to make them look cool. And I think that that gave me sort of opened creative channels in my mind about these kinds of things. Like maybe I could have been a budding fashion designer or whatever. But I used that to become a stylist at one point. And and then I happened to fall into the music industry, and eventually that's, you know, ended up at Geffen Records. And what a better place for a creative person than to work under David Geffen, because he had a mantra like he nobody has a title here. We're all like, if people don't know what you're doing, then you're not doing your job. So like there are no titles. So there was not really that kind of a hierarchy. And I created a package that sort of changed the industry way they package CDs. I won't go into the whole story, but Geffen backed me on it. And that kind of, you know, helped to you know, every little step, right? And, you know, when the president of the company wanted to take the penis off the Nirvana baby because Walmart wouldn't carry it, I said, well, they have to keep the penis because, you know, it's good if Walmart doesn't carry Nirvana. They shouldn't be in Walmart. They're too cool for Walmart. So I think it's just something that you intrinsically know, like creatively in this field. And then when I went on to work in film, I was so underqualified for the job because I didn't really understand the production of films, but I was very creative, and my boss was attracted to that, and he hired me. And I don't think I let him down. I mean, I came up with amazing campaigns that are still talked about. I mean, um, Melissa Merritt just came out with a great book about the oral history of Dazed and Confused, and you know, talks about the iconic poster that I designed of the stoned happy face. Um, but you know, it was in a way for me working on that film was a bit cathartic because I didn't really have a traditional high school experience. I graduated early. I was living as an adult by myself when I graduated high school. So, you know, when it was time to go out and party, I was, no, I've got to get home and study. You know, I was a different kind of kid. So for me, it was just a blast being able to be part of that cast almost and be one of them. You know? and and I think, you know, the you know, the copy certainly drove the copy lines, and you know, all the stuff that I put together for that really drove that campaign. And I think that whether or not it was a box office, you know, huge success, maybe it should have been, I stand behind the campaign I created because I think it really did give it cult status. Richard Linklater wanted a guy in front of a car or high school photos or whatever, and that would have been cool too. But I think the, you know, the happy face, the stoned happy face, really communicated a lot. And at the time, Miramax had put out a film, The Crying Game, and the big popular line was the film everyone will be talking about, but don't give away the secret. And so we just picked up on that and had the film everyone will be toking about. And the MPAA missed it. They didn't get the joke. And then there was See It with the Bud, and they didn't get that joke. And then there was, you know, and then there were, when it was final, it was a TV spot. It was when Clinton said, I smoked marijuana, but I didn't inhale. So we came out with a TV spot that said, finally, a movie for anyone who did inhale. And it was just like, and then they were like, it became a political thing. So Jack Valente, who was the head of the MPA, he flagged it, but it was too late. It had already gained a life of its
Excuse
own. So those kinds of things. And, other campaigns, I worked on Fargo and came up with the needlepoint idea. And I was really flattered and excited to see that they picked it up for the TV series. So I think creating things out of your imagination, I think that that's a lot of what I did. Um, I relied on a lot of my own experiences. Uh, my grandmother was a did needlepoint. So I think that we all sort of rely on our own experiences to sort of form our, you know, craft or what we do. But I think that just over the years, um, I've just like anybody, it's a muscle, you use it, it gets better and stronger. And now, I really enjoy helping startups, with marketing materials. I'm able to look at something and tell if it's going to work and kind of shape it and make it into something like, you know, somebody will come to me with an idea and they won't really know what it means or how to express it. And somehow my mind is able to just go like that, find the beats of what makes it work and put that into an audiovisual piece or a print piece or whatever. So it's just something I've learned, I guess.
I have to have you help me with my marketing or something.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, yeah, I think you're doing a really great job with your marketing. I
Oh,
love your icons, and I
thank you.
think they're great. They're
Thanks.
just that infectious.
Thank
They
you.
really are.
Um, so what advice would you have for aspiring authors?
Well, I'm first of all to be asked. My advice would be it's really flattering because, like, I don't, uh, I guess I can I guess I can put author down on my resume
Yes, you
now.
can. Yes, you can.
But I think just Steven Soderbergh told me once, uh, when you're doing anything that you creatively, the secret is just commence, just start. And that's the hardest part is just begin. And I mean, that's been someone reached out to me on LinkedIn telling me like she read my book and it affected her so much and it was so much like her story and what should she do? Like she's been thinking. And I said, well, it's a very touchy thing, right? Because I don't know her mental state. I don't know really where she's at in the process of her healing. I said, first, I think you should talk to somebody. And second, journaling, I think really helps. It really helped me. I know a lot of people make fun of people who journal, but I think it's if you have something uh, that's making you sad and you write about it, I think sometimes it does, seeing it on the page, sort of go, well, I can deal with that. It's like chipping away at it or something. But I would say just commence to any author. That would be my best advice, the advice I got from Stephen.
And what's next on the horizon for you in general?
Well, I'm still running my company, aptly named Wild Bill, um, and doing that for the foreseeable future. We want to branch out into certain different areas. Right now, we're sort of looking at that. But I am writing two new books.
Ooh.
One is called When I Was a Muse, and the other, and it's sort of a little bit of an adjunct to Blind Pony, but much different. It's um, drawings through the male gaze and uh, short stories and prose through the female gaze and essays. Um, and then the other book I'm tackling is a little bit based on the stories that come after Blind Pony, but it's going to be a fiction.
Got it. That's
So
exciting.
I'm working on that, and that one's really that it's got
It
me
sounds
really
it
excited.
sounds juicy. I can already tell.
It's juicy, but in I think more. I think the reader will have a lot more fun reading it. I think Blind Pony was, like I said, it was a catharsis, and I've often thought, like, should I have not made it so dark? Some of the I've gotten so many 5-star reviews on Goodreads, and I can't believe I get 1 star. I mean, 2 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars you're giving me, and but some of people have said, like, it's we love the book, but it was really hard to read. And I guess I didn't really think about that, when I wrote it. And I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Do you think it was too honest or?
No, I don't think there is a thing as too honest. I think you have to tell it like it is. I think sometimes when you feel like you want to look away at someone's pain, that's the time you have to look closer.
Oh, that's well said. That's a nice message. Yeah. Well, I I feel good about writing it, and I think that's what's important to me, and I don't really I guess I'm at a point in my life too where I really feel I'm at my most joyous. Like I said, I've raised 3 beautiful children. My boys are going to be seniors now, which I can't believe. They're in their last week of finals right now. And 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 my daughter, is a beautiful young woman, and I just feel that's the biggest accomplishment I've made. Um, I've contributed 3 amazing humans to the world. And so I think I have some regrets. Like, I wish I would have maybe tried to write sooner because I feel I have a lot more to say, but I don't think it's ever too late. So I'm just going to keep going and exploring and, trying to be the best person I can be and contribute as much as I can. So, and I'm going to enter my book cover into the Zibby Owens.
Yes, the Zibby
Uh,
Awards. Please do. I love your cover.
yeah, it was drawn by Nick Egan,
I saw that
who
on your website. Yes, he did the
he's
Clash
an
and everything.
he's
Amazing.
yeah, he's amazing. And I just called him up, and he was terrified to do it because he thought, what if I don't like it? He's British, he's really funny. And he came up with that from one of the scenes in the book, obviously. And I just thought it was so perfect. I said, that's it. Just do it. And I was really happy with it. He's an amazing talent. So I
Awesome.
was really thrilled that he supported me in that.
Well, Samantha, thank you. Thank you for coming on for Blind Pony. Thanks for being so open. Thanks for
Thank you.
using your story to help other people and even entertain and along the way. So, you know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice
All
meeting you.
right, have a great day.
Okay, you
Bye.
too. Bye.